And welcome back in another edition Stripe Show Podcasts. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Thank you for making us part of your day. And there he is. He wanted to have a day off because he's been here in my neck of the woods the last week at TPC Sawgrass Players Championship. If you listen to golf on the radio, you know who this man is. He's one of the best voices on the radio. I enjoy listening to him, and he was in the final group on the weekend at TPC Sawgrass Players Championship. Will, I can't thank you enough. I know you're tired. Appreciate you coming on the Stripe Show podcast, my friend.
You gave me outs to not do it, and yet I'm still doing it. So here I am, and I appreciate all the love for the listening, but we're coming off the high of the final round of the Players Championship, and I tweeted this out earlier today. You can always listen to our highlights, by the way. If people don't listen to us on PGA Tour Radio, there's actually a podcast, PGA Tour Replay, and you can hear, what happened through the day. So Fred Albers, who in my opinion is the legend, he is the voice of all of the voices of us on PGA Tour Radio. He's been doing it for a really long time, has a great backstory, and is really clever. He had the call of forever yesterday on Justin Thomas's Eagle on 11. You have to hear it. He worked in it's a number of phrases in the excitement of the moment, which, by the way, it's so good for us because we have fans back. And while logistically it's harder with fans, it was very easy there for a while when I could just scoot around a golf course in a golf cart and call golf from the seat of my pants. The having energy of fans was huge. It completely changed what we can bring to the table and how it makes us better as broadcasters. But Fred dropped the call of all calls that ended with a sizzle and his fashizzle at the end of the call on the Eagle putt yesterday. I'm gonna get T-shirts made. This is it's the best. It's the absolute best. So again, if you go to my Twitter handle at Will Haskett, whenever you're listening to this, I'm probably not gonna tweet very much. So it's gonna be near the top of it. I tweeted the link to the podcast that has the highlights, and I think it's like 90 seconds in. Travis, it was the most quintessential Fred Albers moment ever. I mean, it was awesome. I almost died under a tree. I fell over listening to this.
They're like, let's go to Will. Wait, get up, Will. Are you laughing?
Yeah, no, I'm done. I was toast at that point in time.
I got to tell you, I have really grown to love listening to golf on the radio. I mean, you guys do a great job. The energy's good. You do a really good job, like painting the picture. It's good excitement. I love the way it's produced. I mean, it's, you asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said no. Like, I'll watch it on TV, and I still do. But I really thoroughly enjoy. You guys do a great job there on the radio, and I know there's a lot of people that feel the same way, especially in the gambling space. Like, a lot of these guys really enjoy PGA Tour Radio and the way that you guys cover the sport. And you were right there inside the ropes in the final group on the weekend.
And to that point, by the way, I think it's because we cover a lot of golf. We call a lot of golf shots, and then we provide context for what just happened. And that's not a knock on the guys in TV. They're definitely in more of an entertainment space when they're doing it. And I think we definitely probably call more shots on the radio than they show on TV. It's not by a wide margin, but because the medium is simpler, and we don't have to worry about working in a lot of different elements, it allows us to kind of strip things down and talk about some things. So we're always trying to improve it. So I appreciate the kind words, but you're right. Yeah. Like, I've heard from a lot of people that are in the gaming and the gambling side of things that listen to us because they know that they're going to get every sort of shot. They're learning more about the rounds of the players instead of just sort of hopping back and forth and getting the highlights that you would see from sort of the television side of things. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are really doing a terrific job. And I think back to Sunday, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening and I'm watching, and there's 3 shots that happen, Will, within like this 10-minute span. One of them, Brendan Todd shanks it. It's like, whoa, 17's the last place you want to shank a shot. Then Bryson steps up to 4 and tops it into the water.
Almost hit me.
Okay. And then Lee Westwood, I mean, literally hits a banana slice over into the water. What in the world were you thinking on number 4 on Sunday, Players Championship, best player in the world? This dude just topped it. This dude just sliced it. What is happening?
Every time we try and tell ourselves, and we say this all the time. In fact, it's in our marching orders every week of you never say, hey, somebody's got a tournament locked up, or it looks like so-and-so is going to be able to go on and win, because we've seen too many crazy things. I know this sounds like cliche catchphrasey sort of stuff. The guy from the PGA Tour radio team is supposed to say this, but there is something different that happens when you get to the back nine on Sunday. And I don't care if it's the Players Championship or the John Deere Classic or wherever it is. things tighten up and we get puckering and weird shit happens, man. Like it goes down. Like, I mean, right? I mean, we always just seem to sort of find ourselves in that. It just happened to come a little bit earlier in the round. Now, talking to Lee Westwood after the round, and he was so gracious and he still was smiling after it all. He admitted that he showed up on the first tee and knew he didn't have his best stuff. Like, his swing did not feel good. He was struggling with it off the tee all day. So for him to get up there and wipe it into the water like he did on 4 wasn't super surprising. But that came right after Bryson buzzed my tower. I mean, that ball came whizzing past me, and I was the only person that saw it embed in the bank because everybody else is already up. It's a weird hole because there's a bunch of palmetto bushes that are down the left-hand side. So any fans that are trying to work their way down that hole don't have access to see that strip of all the forward tee boxes. And so I had just gotten up there far enough, but I was on foot yesterday. I wasn't in a cart. And so my only way to see the tee ball was to stick my head out there at that forward tee and kind of watch those tee balls. And I mean, I think Rich Beam was there with Sky and Roger Maltby was there with NBC. And those guys had already gone up ahead because it's an awkward hole. You kind of want to get ahead because of the hills and everything to be in position logistically for where the shots are going to be. And all of a sudden I see this ball and it comes off his club and knuckle straight forward. And it embedded inside the penalty area just above this sort of cove of water. And I'm the only person that saw it. And Travis, we never found it. Bryce and I looked for the ball for maybe 45 seconds. And I'm like, Bryson is right in here somewhere. But that thing made the sound like the ground swallowed that ball right where it was. Now, you can't get relief, so it didn't really matter. He was going to take a drop. We didn't have to go, and spend 3 minutes looking for it. But it was weird because I didn't expect that from Bryson. No. I know it's a harder shot for him, with what he's trying to do. You would know better than me what he's trying to do with that little stinger iron from a control standpoint. And maybe that's more of a possibility than if he's just swinging up on something and putting it out there. But you knew right then and there that crazy things were going to continue happening. And you know what? If you had told me that both of them would have a chance with 3 holes to go to still win that golf tournament that very moment, I don't know if I would have believed you, but other crazy stuff happened that allowed those guys to just kind of be there down the stretch.
Yeah, it was, you may not see Bryson ever hit that shot again in his career. You just don't ever see a tour player actually it was a cold top. I mean, just just above the equator, never got off the ground and right into the water. And yeah, you make a good point, Westwood. His swing was not intact. That he seems to that shorter swing. His body wasn't moving as good. You could definitely see him leaning on it. His path was way to the left. He had a lot of low poles. And then, of course, when you do that, the face stays open. Then he can hit the wipe to the right. At the age of 47, that's a real thing. You wake up, your body doesn't feel great, right? We know guys in their late 20s, early 30s struggle with that. You can imagine a guy in his late 40s. You talked about Lee being in a good headspace, which he does, smiling, looks happy. And it's refreshing, right, to see Lee out there having such a good time, playing great golf. JT hasn't been in a great space. Everything that has happened to him on the course, off the course, his grandfather, who he's very close to, he's been in a tough spot for a month. Did it appear to you, as it did to me, that literally on 16 on Friday, he makes birdie. He makes birdie on 18. It's like, and then all of a sudden it was like, I'm back. I mean, he was just like, I'm back, and he comes on Saturday and he darn near ties the course record, shooting 64. And JT looked like JT to me all over again on Saturday after a couple late birdies on Friday.
Yeah, and he talked about it after the round yesterday when he won. He said it was one of his best ball striking rounds ever that he can remember. And this is a guy that's had some pretty incredible ball striking rounds. I mean, for him to hit 17 of 18 greens, and I say he hit 17 and a half of 18 greens because he was off by a centimeter on 18 when it mattered the most. And I saw him walk. I called his birdie putt on Friday. And at that point in time, he was 2 inside the cut line or 1 inside the cut line. So he stood up on the 18th tee knowing that if he rinsed it on Friday, he wasn't going to make the cut. And his mom gave him a hug right after the round on Friday. She was waiting, and it was before he'd even gone to sign his card. So you could just sort of tell that it was an emotional day. A lot of players, Colin Morikawa, who I was with, had an emotional, needed to make birdie at the last to make the cut. I mean, those guys, there's pride there. There's a lot of sort of value in trying to figure it out and fighting through in these big tournaments. Not necessarily thinking you're going to give yourself a chance to win, but just because you want to be there on the weekend. You want to compete against the best. no matter what the circumstance might be when you get to it. And then lo and behold, that just sort of snowballed and carried over for him. And let's be honest, the door was left open for him to walk through on Sunday, and he probably shot the worst score he could have shot given how he hit the ball. I mean, which is kind of amazing to think about from JT's standpoint. But yeah, you're right. Those are the things that sort of stack up. And then whatever that was to allow him to get over the hurdle, if it was just putting together a couple of good holes to show himself that he could get himself into that tournament or into the weekend, and then the floodgates kind of open from there. He has the best round, and then he's one of those guys that when it gets figured out, it's not like he throws a 64 on the board and the next day's a 73. We typically see 3 or 4 rounds like this in a row, or 2 or 3 tournaments like this in a row for Justin Thomas, because when it's all in sequence, it's really working, and it carried over. And he was so patient, and for him to put up with all of the 10-footers that he missed over and over and over again and stay the course in that final round, it pays off for him with the eagle putt on 11. And he just kind of holds on for dear life from that point. But the eagle was such a huge body shot to the rest of the field, especially to Lee Westwood, who was struggling behind in the trees there on that par 5 right after it happened. Is that it just changed everything. And you could feel the crowd trying to pull Lee along, but it was going to be a big mountain to climb, and Justin wasn't going to make a mistake, and he didn't.
Yeah,
outside of the 3-putt.
Right. Yeah, on 14. After a great drive. I mean, after just a brilliant drive, right?
But he wasn't going to make double, The ball striking was too good that he wasn't going to make a double bogey. I mean, the only chance that Lee Westwood probably had realistically, if he wasn't going to go out and get it and make birdies, was Justin was going to have to rinse it on 17 or 18. That was really the only chance that you had to catch him at that point in time, and he was hitting the ball too well for that to happen.
Yeah, he was hitting the ball really, really well on the weekend. And you're right. When he gets it going, it's a freight train, and that train is rolling for a while. And that's what I did on my picks. My picks didn't do that great this week, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to get some live betting action here. I'm going to go in on JT to win. So I got some late odds on him to win. He comes back and wins. We salvage the week. But that's why I did, because when I started to see him go on Saturday, I was like, watch out. Here comes JT, because this is going to go on for a while. And sure enough, it did. And I got to tell you, what a turnaround in driving. WGC Mexico, he lost 6 strokes to the field, strokes getting off the tee. 6. I mean, he was all over the place with his driver. This week, he's 3.5. And he hit some cool shots down the stretch on Sunday. That drive on 14 is not easy, as you know. That is a very, very tough driving hole. It might be one of the most uncomfortable golf holes that I've ever been on. I mean, he pipes it. He goes to 15, hits a power fade. That might be the longest drive I've ever seen.
Through the fairway.
I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a drive there. Then he goes 16. He hits about that high off the ground. A low rope hook on purpose. I was like,
hey, okay, Twitter says he toe hooked it and it wasn't on purpose. And it's like, no. And the reason why, I'm on the hill to the left of 15 green, getting ready for approach shots from Westwood and DeChambeau. And I turn around. I'm standing right behind JT's mom, watching him hit that tee ball. And as soon as he made contact with the ball, he didn't even finish his backswing. He was already twirling and going to get the tee. He did exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted that ball chasing. He wanted it low to get it down the fairway. He wanted the same thing on 18. So anybody that's out there dropping this, no, he missed it by a groove or he hit it off the toe. And like, he did exactly what he wanted to do with that shot, because you could see it in his reactions. Like, I am in an absolute flipping zone right now, and I can do whatever I want to do to the golf ball.
It was amazing. I mean, you couldn't have had 2 different shots. High fade, low hook. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've seen all year right there.
Yeah, game over.
That's the coolest thing I've seen all year. Those 2 shots. I mean, that was awesome. And then at 18, he just hammers that. I mean, he was a little more left than he wanted, but he roped that one too, on the left side on 18. So, I mean, this driver, right? We know JT, his iron game is him and Morikawa are the 2 best strokes and approach players in the game. I mean, they are so good with their irons. JT driver was the difference for me. This dude hit some shots with the tee ball down the stretch, and TPC is no place to be messing around off the tee. Like, you better step up there on 14. You better have it together. You better step up there on 15. You better have it together. 16, you got a little more wiggle room. I get to par 5. You can overcome. 18, you better have it together. And this dude just stepping up like every which way, low, high. I'm like, sign me up. This is must-watch TV. And what a difference it was from the last time he played at the WGC, where the guy couldn't find it. I mean, it was hitting it all over the place. So to me, the driver really stood out. Will, I mean, on late on Sunday, What else for you with JT that really stood out as you followed him there on Sunday?
In full control too, because you're thinking about this. Like I'm listening and getting sort of watch it as I get up and I see that, and I'm watching a lot of obviously what Westwood and DeChambeau are doing, and you've got Lee Westwood who's openly talked about the fact that he's just taking an entire side of the golf course out of his tee game. Like he knows that when he's taking the left side of the golf course out of play, he can hit a draw, and he admittedly will hit a draw when there's no trouble to the left if he overcooks it. But for the most part, like he's going to hit a cut off the tee, which is like 16. He didn't get any run out on his shot. He had 247 yards. Maybe it was 239. Maybe it was 249, somewhere in that range. Between 235 and 245 is what Lee Westwood had in on 16 yesterday, because he played a high soft cut off the trees down the left-hand side and got maybe 4 yards worth of roll. Whereas Justin Thomas roasts a 3-wood, not off the toe, Twitter, and gets that giant sort of chase out, which gets him down to the ability to hit an iron into that hole, especially like he did when he nearly had the albatross on Saturday. And so the yardage that Lee Westwood loses in not wanting to move the ball ends up costing him, because he doesn't have the ball flight to then go over that live oak tree. He ends up catching up in the branches. It comes down into that waist sort of bunker, and he has to scramble to make his 5 there. Is that Justin Thomas's complete control of his golf ball and saying, I can hit it left to right, I can hit it right to left, I can manipulate and have complete control of my golf ball under pressure. That shows me a championship level. I'm not saying that what Lee Westwood has done is wrong. No one's saying that. Most all the best players have at some point in time been like, you know what, how can I eliminate one half of the golf course, because minimizing my misses, minimizing my bogey chances is way more important than maximizing my birdie chances. I'm sure you talk about that all the time. So finding ways to eliminate mistakes is great, but when all of a sudden you're on a golf course and this golf course demands the best test of the best golfer that week, you have to be able to control your golf ball in every single way if you want to rise all the way to the top. Justin Thomas found that control and wasn't afraid to go left to right or right to left on whatever the situation demanded.
It was cool to watch. It really was. TPC Sawgrass tends to, kind of bring out that draw, but sometimes you really felt like players were on the edge coming in. Like every swing could be the difference, and you go back to, like you said, on Friday on 18 for JT, he rinses that. He's not even in the tournament, for crying out loud. That's what TPC does. And it just really played out very well. Another guy on 16, Bryson, went over the trees. I mean, he had like $170 left. I mean, it was just nothing. Throws it in there, makes eagle. I watch Bryson. Okay. And the distance, we know, is beyond impressive.
Can I stop? Wait, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. This is my campaign. Okay? I want everybody to stop using the word distance when we talk about Bryson. I just want them to just change the word distance and just say speed. The speed that Bryson plays with. Yeah. Because if we approach the sentence, and you know where I'm going with this, right? I'm not getting on your case here, Travis. I think it would completely change the narrative around Bryson if we started every statement about what he's doing with the speed that he is generating, because then it drops in everything else. I'm sorry for interrupting. Please continue.
No, it's fair. I mean, the speed, length, distance, power game, right? Like, check. He's number one. He's the alpha right now when it comes to that. So much to the point, you've got guys like Rory McIlroy feeling the need to add more power, which was just crazy to me when he came out with that. We'll get to that in a second. But here's what impressed me with Bryson. 2 things. One is that he stayed the course with his game plan. He didn't get overly aggressive when he knew he had to make some things happen. Now, he was playing that driver on 16 the whole time. He aimed for the center of the green on 17. Hit 4 iron on 18. So there's a real discipline happening from his course management standpoint. That's number one. Number 2, the kid just fights. He's not a kid, but you know what I'm saying? Like, the young man, he fights. And he is a fighter, man. Like, he will grind you to the end. You're going to have to say, look, hey, Bryson, the tournament's over, right? It's time to shut it down. That guy is a grinder. He's a fighter. He's disciplined with his course management. What stands out to you? You're inside the ropes with this guy. Is there anything else that you would add to this long, impressive list of Bryson?
You hit the nail on the head, a lot of that. I mean, I think this was his worst finish. What did he finish? Tied for 3rd, right? This was his worst finish in the last 3 years when he was within 2 shots to lead going into Sunday. Like, he doesn't choke And most of the time he wins. Like, he finds a way to get it done. I don't think we're giving him enough credit for being a winner.
I agree.
Being a guy who finds a way to get it done when most people find a way to not get it done when they're in similar situations. It's that he has all of the shots, even though we only tend to focus on the one club and the one thing about his game. The fact that he really didn't have any tee game to speak of, and his irons were up and down Thursday and Friday, and he just putted the ball really well. The fact that he can chip with a method that I don't think most instructors would teach, as upright as he is and the things that he does, but the control that he has, the creativity that he has, and the reason why he's not, the butt of jokes amongst his peers on the PGA Tour is because these guys watch him. It's the reason why Lanto Griffin gave him a fist bump when he put the two arms in the air at Bay Hill. It wasn't because Lanto was impressed that he hit it 340 or 350 in the air. It's that Lanto and everybody else out there know how much time he's had to sacrifice and how much work he's had to put in to do some of the things that he is doing, to challenge the status quo of the game and to try and do it differently. Now, if you don't like what he's done in the game, if you don't like how some of the rules and the equipment are set up to benefit what he's doing in the game, that's a completely separate conversation. But you can't be upset at a guy who is literally spending every waking moment of his day trying to get better in a million different ways, working out, putting time in on the range, studying what needs to get done, looking at strategy. And when that round was over with yesterday, Travis, he did a couple of interviews and he stood right next to me at the back of where they had the ceremony going on with Mike Tirico and the commissioner, Jay Monahan. And he just stood there and he watched JT talk about his round, about what he did and everything, and just sat there and he wanted it so bad. He didn't get it done. And he was there still in that moment, being like, I'm going to be on that stage here soon. And you could just see it already fueling his mind. Like, what do I need to do? What shot could I have done differently to get up on that stage next time?
Yeah, it's impressive stuff. I saw that tweet by you. That Bryson
I wanted to take a picture, but that was weird. I'm not that guy. Yeah. I'm not the guy that I was right there. I was saying I could have just done like this and done the camera behind him and it would have gone viral. And I probably would have gotten in trouble for it. So I didn't do it because but I wanted to share that later because again, what most people, they get done, they leave, they go with their family, something like Bryson wanted to see that. It's like, we're in March Madness. It's like the team that will stay out there when the confetti is falling and One Shining Moment's playing and they lost the national title game because they want to try and get back there. They want to feel the pain of not getting it done because it motivates whatever the next segment is. So, God bless Tim Tucker. He was probably on the range waiting for him with the bag after that ceremony was over so he can start grinding away at the next win,
That would have been great. The ceremony's over. The cameras go to the range and there's
Bryson's on the range, baby.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So, because we know Bryson is, he's changing the game, the narrative for the game. We know power's always been important. It's always been a driving force in the game. You go back to Tiger, you go back to Jack. These guys were power players, right? And Rory's power, JT's got power, John Rahm's got power, DJ's got power. These are the top players in the game, right? Bryson DeChambeau, he's got the most amount of power. He's just taking to a whole nother level here. Scott Fawcett's coming on Wednesday on the podcast, and he tells the story of when the tour started back out in Texas at the Colonial, and they played a practice round, and Bryson was hitting it 40 yards past Rory every single drive.
Yep.
And it's one thing 10, 15, but then you go 40, and it's like, wow, like that's a whole nother level, right? That's the gear that he has. Now here's Rory coming out, and he's admitted, in my view, too honest. I appreciate the transparency, Will. It's great. It's great for our business. But as a coach player, I'm like, all right, there's some things that you just probably need to hold in a little bit. Your therapy session is not the world, right? There's some things you can be transparent, but I think in that case, that's a little too honest for me from a coaching perspective.
Okay.
But nonetheless, here's Rory saying, look, I'm out there changing my swing, trying to hit it harder. And it's affected him in a bad way. It affected Jordan Spieth in a bad way. There's way more stories where people chase distance. It hurts. The net effect hurts their game more. They just can't manage it, right? Mm-hmm. Bryson took a huge risk. He's managing it. It's made him a better player. I was floored by Rory's statement. I really was. I couldn't believe it. I was like, Rory McIlroy, of all people, you could give me a list of 200 people, he'd be number 200 that would ever bark up that tree to think that this is what I need to do to be competitive. Am I wrong?
I don't know because here's the thing. He's just like Bryson. What do I need to do to get better? Like, what can I do to continue to get better? And so, and you could see him measuring. He was trying to measure everything he said so it wouldn't get taken out of context. And
that's
I think
why you can't be that honest, though. Like,
I think everything was great in the statement until he said, I wouldn't be lying. I'd be lying if I said that watching what Bryson did at the U.S. Open didn't affect things, which I think was then that's now the news cycle, right? Like that's going to be the clip. And then what's lost is on the backside of it, him being like, what people don't understand about Bryson is that what he's doing with speed and strength and being so upright and being able to hit down on the golf ball is that he's able to play it out of the rough easier than we are and hit these clubs into there. And he gave a great dissertation on why Bryson is good, not just because he hits bombs. And that's what I wish had gotten clipped. Because instead, now what are we talking about? Oh, Rory's messed up because he's trying to hit it as far as Bryson. No, this goes back to the beginning of it. It's not necessarily about distance. It's about speed. It's he's seeing what the speed gains of Bryson are doing through the bag, making him a better player. You're right. I get it. I understand that if you're working with Rory, you're like, oh, now we're going to have to deal with the PR sort of follow-up of it. I don't want Rory to ever change. I appreciate his honesty, and I love hearing from him and everything like that. But I think that gets lost in it. And what I see from Rory is just like where Bryson was, that Bryson 18 months ago decided that he was going to completely bulk up and go crazy big into this distance and this length thing. And at the very, very beginning of it, Travis, people were like, this is insane. Like, we were making jokes about the protein shakes. And I know he's brought a lot of it on himself because there'd be some silly Instagram videos of him pumping iron or, sort of things that happen that sort of open yourself up to the critique of it all. But he went all in on finding an edge and exploiting it. And he's become one of the best players in the world because of it. So I'm not surprised that even a player who's number 1, 2, or 3 in the world, like Rory McIlroy, will be like, well, man, if there's still capacity here for me to get better in an area that I'm seeing results of someone doing, then I should at least explore this.
Yeah. Explore is one. Incrementally, it's a process. Like, it's not a pill. Like, you just don't take a pill and all of a sudden,
no,
like all of a sudden I'm longer and everything's great. So there's a process to this. I mean, Bryson and Chris have been working on this Como for 2.5 years. This is not just flip the switch, 40 pounds out of COVID, off we go. This has been going on for a while. So I was just shocked by that he felt the need to do that. I know Bryson can be dominant with his length, but he's not going to show up and win every tournament. It's not that Rory is short. He's the second longest hitter on the PGA Tour. It just felt a little out of place. It felt a little rushed, not thought through. When I hear Rory, he seems a little lost right now. Like, he seems just overall, he's lost on what he's trying to do and the kind of player that he wants to be. And he's just kind of grabbing, which is a really scary place to be. Because now you're
DJ, not Bryson.
Yeah, now you're
DJ's sacrificing. He's sacrificing to be better in other areas. DJ's sacrificing distance for control because he knew he was long enough and he got better with the like. I still watch Rory, play a good round of golf, and then there'll be that wild 90-yard wedge shot, and you're like, wait a second, like how did that just happen? It's like, it's not the driver. I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah, totally understand where you're coming from. I'm not shooting the messenger because I think that the idea was, what's the next way for me to get better? Maybe that wasn't the way for him to get better, but I'm not mad at him trying to pursue it because that happened to be the du jour way of seeing someone meteorically rise to becoming a dominant U.S. Open player. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And people kind of got on me when I said it. And I think my frustration with Rory, I'm a huge Rory fan. I love him. He's probably my favorite player to watch and cheer for. I mean, he's a wonderful person. I got to play with him at API a few years ago in the Pro-Am, met him at Golf Channel. Like, he's just A+ guy. And, I think the frustration for me is when I listen to him talk, and this has been for me for a while now, he just like, there's no plan in place. It just like, he's just grabbing right now. There's no plan. It's like, you know what? I'm going to get longer. Try that putter.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute.
He's not maybe he's not honest. Maybe we think he's honest, but he's not honest.
Like, let's get this figured out. Like, you got the right team. Like, and now he's, I think he seek counsel with Pete Cowan as of late. So there's some pieces that need to be rewired. Phil Mickelson, there's another one, right? Chase distance. That dude can't keep it on the planet.
No.
He's all over the place.
He can on the Champions Tour, though.
Yeah, he can. I was surprised he made the cut, to be honest with you, at the Players. Played very well. But there's a guy that, again, like, it's just so many stories. You just got to be careful. It's going to be fascinating. Well, I'll finish with this. It's going to be fascinating in the next couple years to watch. It's not the next generation I'm worried about, because these kids are coming up with speed. Okay. They're learning it young. Will Zalatoris can bomb.
Oh my gosh.
Bomb it, right? Like he's
violent swing too.
Yeah, he's already learned it. Like, there's nothing else to learn. He's just going to put mass on and hit it further. That's always going to happen with Will. He's just still developing as a person, in
crazy.
mass. It is. And there's more coming. There's a name in Texas that Bernie Najar works with. I'm drawing a blank. Patterson's his name. Tommy Morrison.
Tommy Morrison. He's 6'8". He's 6'8". Giant.
6'8". 15-year-old. This is like, it's not those kids I'm worried about. What's fascinating is the people that are in it right now. Rory, JT, Rahm, like Bryson has set the bar, and now how are they going to manage it? Because they can't just take a pill and have the rest of their game still be good and put on, 50. So I'm just really curious here in the next couple of years to watch how these guys go about it. And they've got to be careful and protect their talent.
But Justin Thomas just won the Players Championship, and he's never going to be able to do what Bryson does. He knows he needs speed, and he works on things. He certainly puts his body through the motions to be able to do some of the violent movement that he needs to be able to do. I think I saw some stuff today just from the TPI guys about, some of the things that he's been doing in box jumps and everything for the explosive movement that has to get done. But he's never going to be able to pack on 40 pounds. He packs on 40 pounds. It's going to be in the wrong places, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way that he's ever going to do that. Colin Morikawa knows he's not chasing distance, although Colin still moves it pretty good. I was out there with him and DJ and Bryson the beginning of last week, and he was kind of the odd man out, right? You had two what you would think of as long hitters, and to be honest with you, Colin and DJ were kind of together in fairways. When you could grip it and go for it, Colin was pretty close to DJ, and then there's another 20 yards, and you go and find Bryson's golf ball. Now DJ's also struggling to find it right now too. He's had a little bit of a swoon, but when I see that, it's like, okay, these guys know who they are. You can be really elite at something, and then if we can get everything else just kind of fall into the good category, you're going to win golf tournaments. That's what Colin Morikawa is doing right now. If he can just find a way to be pretty good with a putter most weeks, he finds a way to win. Justin Thomas finally put the ball striking together and had a terrible putting Sunday. Statistically and probably by his own standards, it still won the Players Championship. You can find ways to get it done without having to chase whatever you think the white rabbit of the day is.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We've been in the sport a long time. It's cool. I feel like golf is really excelling right now. The silver lining with COVID, was, golf and participation. But we're in a great spot. We need, we want, hopefully Tiger can get back and play. We all know, fingers crossed. But we are moving out of the Tiger Phil era. We all understand that.
Have to.
And we have to. Yeah. And it's cool to see this next generation. I love the distance talk. I think it's cool. Where's it going to go? This next generation of players coming up, it's gonna be fascinating to watch. These guys, you think Bryson hits it a long way. We haven't seen the tip of the iceberg yet. There's more coming that they'll grip down this little bunt fade out there, 355, 360, just to get it in play. Forget about bombing it. That'll be the one they just heel cut
until we bifurcate, and then they'll only be hitting it 310, but they'll still be 30 yards longer than the average guy on tour.
Right. All right, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on the podcast. Always enjoy listening to you. We'll do it again. Have a great afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. See you, buddy.
Okay.